Obama walked into a fancy restaurant. No one recognized him. Then he saw a black woman 2 tables down being ignored just like him, and that's when everything changed. He walked in alone, dressed in jeans and a dark gray sweater, his face partially obscured by a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. The hostess glanced up briefly from her podium, then back down at the reservation list. "Just one?" she asked almost without looking. "Yes, just me," he said, smiling politely. She didn't recognize him. To her, he looked like an aging man, well-kept but ordinary, a face that could have belonged to any professor or retired school principal, the kind of man you might pass on the street without a second thought. She gestured to a small table by the window. "No reservation?" "No, just passing through," he replied. She handed him a menu wordlessly and walked away. The restaurant was upscale, polished wood floors, hanging Edison bulbs, wine bottles displayed like trophies behind glass. It was the kind of place where deals were made, birthdays toasted, and the waitstaff was trained to spot power from across the room. But not today. He sat for a while, unnoticed. No one brought water. No one approached. Servers passed his table carrying trays, checking on couples, pouring wine. He was invisible. He didn't complain, just waited. And then he noticed her. 2 tables over, a woman in a modest gray blazer sat quietly, hands folded. She looked nervous, as if she wasn't sure she belonged here. Her purse was tucked neatly at her feet. Her hair had been done recently, but her shoes looked worn. Her eyes scanned the room, hopeful but fading. No one had approached her either. She raised a hand tentatively. A waitress made eye contact and then looked away. A couple seated after her had already received their drinks. Obama watched, his expression unreadable. The woman straightened her posture. She glanced at her phone, then folded her hands again. Her lips moved slightly like she was rehearsing something. Maybe she had come from a job interview. Maybe she was celebrating something quietly. Or maybe she was just trying to treat herself for once. She tried again. "Excuse me," she called gently to a passing waiter. He didn't stop, just kept walking. Obama looked back down at his untouched menu. Then he placed it face down on the table. Another server finally approached, glancing briefly at him. "Can I get you something to drink?" he asked, tone neutral, almost impatient. "Sure," Obama said calmly. "But I was wondering, has anyone checked on the lady 2 tables down?" The server blinked. "I'm not sure. I'll ask." He walked off without taking the drink order. Obama glanced at the woman again. Her shoulders had slumped slightly. She had picked up her phone again, but now she looked like she was preparing to leave. Embarrassment lingered on her face like a stain she couldn't scrub off. And still, no one came. That's when Obama stood up. He walked over slowly, removing his cap. "Excuse me," he said softly. The woman looked up, startled, and then her eyes widened. "Mr. President?" He gave a small smile. "Not anymore, but yes." She blinked quickly, standing halfway. "I'm sorry. No need to apologize. I was just wondering if you'd allow me to join you." She stared, unsure whether this was real. "I promise I don't bite," he said, still smiling. She nodded slowly, disbelief written across her face. "Of course." They sat together. The room began to shift. Subtle gasps, furtive glances, whispers darting between tables like sparks. Servers froze in place. A manager appeared at the kitchen door, eyes scanning the room, suddenly alert. Within 60 seconds, a waitress appeared, water in hand, menus ready, posture upright. "Can I help you both?" she asked, her voice now high and bright, trembling slightly. Obama didn't even look at her. He looked at the woman. "What were you planning to order?" he asked. "I hadn't gotten that far." "Well," he said, flipping open the menu, "then let's see what we're working with." The waitress stood awkwardly, waiting. Obama finally turned to her. "We'll let you know when we're ready." She nodded, cheeks flushed, and backed away. The woman still seemed in shock. "I'm sorry," she said again. "This is just... I never thought..." "You shouldn't be surprised," he said. "You belong here just as much as anyone." She smiled shyly. "Not according to them." He leaned in slightly. "Their mistake." They talked, nothing deep, just small things. What brought her here, what she did for work. She had just interviewed for a position at a nonprofit down the street. She was hopeful but uncertain. Her mom had told her to celebrate the attempt, no matter the outcome. So she'd picked this restaurant from a Google search, thinking she'd sit, reflect, maybe order something nice for herself. But then no one had seen her, until now. After a while, Obama waved over the server and placed both orders. When the food came, they ate together, quietly, comfortably. And as the meal ended, he placed his card on the table, along with a handwritten note scrawled on the back of the receipt. Then he stood. "Thank you for letting me crash your celebration," he said. "Thank you for making me feel like I deserve to celebrate," she replied. He nodded once, then turned and walked toward the door. The staff parted as he passed. But before leaving, he stopped at the hostess stand. The manager was there now, flustered and sweating. "I want to thank you," Obama said. "Sir, for the reminder." I, I'm sorry, Mr. President. We didn't." He raised a hand. "Don't apologize, just remember." He handed him the receipt. On the back, the note read, "Next time, serve with your heart, not your eyes." Then he walked out. The door swung shut behind him with a soft click, and the hum of conversation slowly returned to the restaurant. But it was different now. Quieter. Heavier. The hostess stared down at the receipt in her manager's hand, reading the words over and over. "Serve with your heart, not your eyes." She swallowed hard. At the table where Obama and the woman had eaten, the waitress stood awkwardly, collecting dishes with robotic precision. She didn't meet the woman's eyes. Across the room, an older couple whispered to each other, one of them nudging a phone screen under the table. Word had already begun to spread, but the woman, her name was Janice, didn't notice any of that. She sat still, her hands lightly resting on the edge of the table, staring at the empty chair across from her like it was still occupied. No one had ever done anything like that for her before, and certainly not someone like him. Later that evening, in the small one-bedroom apartment where Janice lived with her mother, she recounted the story. "He sat with you?" her mother asked, stunned. "Yes," Janice said. "He ordered food. He asked me about my life. He looked me in the eye." Her mother sat back in the worn recliner, eyes glistening. "You know what this means, right?" "What?" "You've spent so long thinking you weren't seen, that you were small, invisible, but even he saw you. The world might look past you, but not everyone." Janice smiled faintly. "I didn't even think I was that upset," she said. "I was just used to it." Her mother nodded slowly. "That's what makes it worse. When we stop noticing, we're being ignored." The next day, the restaurant's Yelp page exploded. "How do you ignore a former president? How many others have they treated like this without cameras watching? Maybe now they'll learn to treat everyone like they matter." The restaurant issued a public apology. The manager spoke on local radio. The staff underwent new training. But the truth was, Obama hadn't posted anything. He hadn't told the press. He hadn't even mentioned the name of the restaurant. Someone else had taken a photo from across the room and uploaded it with a simple caption. Barack Obama saw what no one else did and sat down. It went viral, but Obama didn't respond to the attention. He didn't need to. A week later, Janice received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a small envelope with her name handwritten across the front. Inside the envelope, a short note. "Thank you for reminding me why I believed in service in the first place. Keep showing up." Written beneath the note was a thin leather-bound journal. On the first page in gold lettering, "You were always meant to be seen." Elsewhere in his quiet study, Obama sat by a window sipping tea. He stared out at the early evening sky, the kind that turns violet just before darkness. Michelle walked in, pausing at the doorway. "You made the news again," she said. He chuckled. "Without trying, I promise." "What happened this time?" He turned to her, setting the cup down. "Just had lunch," she smiled. "With someone who needed it, I'm guessing." He nodded. "She reminded me of, well, a lot of people. People who get passed over, looked through, judged before they even open their mouths." Michelle sat beside him. "And did you say anything presidential?" "No," he said. "I just listened." She looked at him for a long moment, then reached over and squeezed his hand. "I hope she remembers that moment for the rest of her life." "I think she will," he said. "But honestly, so will I." Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't deliver a speech or pass a law. Sometimes it's just pulling up a chair, listening, letting someone know they were never invisible. Because real leadership isn't in the title, it's in the moments no one records. The ones that happen at small tables, in quiet rooms, when someone chooses to see what everyone else ignores.